Hello, Trojan fans. Welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined alongside my buddy, my pal, Mr. Triple Double himself, Connor Morrissette. He's in studio. Welcome, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Good to be here.
It is good to be here. Happy to be talking about some USC football. It would have been nicer if it got a win over the weekend. So we got to kind of talk about the fallout of the loss to Minnesota. A lot of different topics I put on the docket today. I don't usually do all that stuff, but there's a lot of different things we need to touch on. Some big rule changes with national letter of intents gone. Just they're going away. So if you have a fax machine just for that, you can now get rid of it, sell it on eBay, whatever you want to do. But we're going to get into that. Connor went to a basketball scrimmage. Of course, number 4 Penn State is coming to the Coliseum this weekend. Lots of stuff to get to. Before we get to all of that, just want to let you know, if you have a question for us, we got a lot of email questions to get to later today, but you can email us, podcast@uscfootball.com, or you could call or text us at 424-254-9141. And if you have the Apple podcasting app or Spotify, go in there, go to the Peristyle Podcast page, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate it very much. And if you have the Apple one on your iPhone or whatever, you can actually leave us a review. We'd love to read them on the air. So we haven't had one for a little bit. So get in there and leave us a 5-star review. Will, thank you very much for doing that. All right, Connor, you okay?
Yeah.
Coming in hot? What do we got here?
I just got some of the visitors, some of the recruits who are going to be at the USC game on Saturday, right when we started. So if you're not subscribed to uscfootball.com, you definitely should be, because we're going to be talking about those over there on our board. Probably a little later today. Everything's happening so quickly, but some big names, of course. So I know USC's coming off a loss, but as we all know, recruiting never stops, and a win against Penn State, that can certainly change the tide in a number of different ways. And if you have a bunch of 5-star, 4-star, really talented kids in the building to watch that could go a long way. So winning this weekend would go a long way in a number of ways.
For sure. I agree with you there. And if I haven't mentioned, we are live on our YouTube channel over at Inside Troy. Please like and subscribe the streams over there when we go live. We go live several times a week. We'll do another show this Thursday. Connor's going to have the night off, so we're going to have me and Shotgun with Jack. And then is Chris going to do Sunday?
Yes, and Jack said when it's you, Shotgun, and him, those are the best shows. So
that's what Jack said.
Thanks,
okay.
Jack.
Oh, geez.
He was kidding. We were just busted chops, but I thought that was funny.
So we'll be live on there. If you have questions or comments in the chat, you can put question in there. I will start and get to it. I'll try to put your comments up. Mark is always great. Comes in the chat and says hello to everybody. Hello to us. Hello, fight on to everybody. So thanks, Mark, and hello and fight on to you. Before we get into everything, just want to thank our sponsor, Trader Joe's. Coming back from a trip, Connor, I usually make a trip over to Trader Joe's. I actually started a challenge, and I think I need to announce this. Not that it matters, but just sometimes for accountability. My gym, F45, has a 45-day challenge, and you try to go to the workout every day. They have a different workout every day, and there's a chart. You put the star on it. I'm a sucker for that crap. If there's a thing, I want to get my star every day, means nothing. I just want to get the star, so it makes me go work out. So that's one thing. But I also decided to give up sweets for the 45 days, which is going to be very, very difficult.
Halloween?
For me. I know, for Halloween.
Is Thanksgiving here? Is that within 45 days?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Still,
no, Halloween. I think I could eat pumpkin pie and stuff. I would probably make an exception for that. But yes, so I'm not going to do sweets. So they do your body mass, your body fat percentage and all that kind of stuff. And mine's actually pretty good, but I just want to try to get a little better. And I used to do 100 push-ups a day. This is going long. People don't care. And I stopped kind of doing that, but I'm doing 100 push-ups a day for the 45 days. But anyway, I wanted to go to Trader Joe's and buy some healthy stuff to eat. I had caught a bunch of fish up in Canada, so I bought some stuff to make poke bowls with. They have a really cool shelled edamame I like to get over at Trader Joe's. The green onions are awesome, and I put that into the poke I would make, or I make some ceviche too, so avocado and jalapenos and red onions I'll pick up over there. And last night I just picked up one of the salads. It was an apple walnut salad. Ooh. And I just air fried some salmon I caught in the air fryer and put it right on the salad. So I've never really made a salmon salad before, but I did that. But yeah, so I'm going to get healthy stuff for Trader Joe's for the next 45 days. So you won't hear me talking about chocolate peanut butter cups or anything.
Yes, and you'll stay away from candy on Halloween somehow. Good luck.
I don't know. I eat. Are you a cotton candy person? I mean, not cotton candy. Candy corn.
Yeah, I like candy corn.
I do. Some people hate it. They say it tastes like chalk. I've always if I have a bowl of it, I just keep eating it and keep eating it. I don't know if there's been a year I've not had any. So this will be the first year I haven't had any candy corn. I should have got some before, like I went on the challenge. Or maybe I'll just buy some bags and keep them for afterwards, because that's probably in the spirit of what I would be doing. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Reward yourself at the end. Michael
says, the boys are fired up for this one. I could feel it. Oops, that was the wrong comment I put up there. But Michael did say that, and I'll put that up right now. Ajax wants to know, wanted to ask again, how are y'all doing besides football? Life going well?
Yes, things are great, but hey, we're right in the middle of a big football season, and USC has a chance to get things back on track. I don't think too many people want to hear about us, but thanks, Ajax. Yeah. I appreciate that.
I kind of gave you my whole spiel just now anyway. So, but I think Connor's doing well. We're doing good. It's definitely our jobs are easier when USC's winning, and when they're not, there's a lot more work, to be honest, just because people are quite upset. And but we're going to get a bunch of the topics that I kind of starred for today. We heard from Lincoln Riley a couple times, and I know you put up a great piece, like the 10 takeaways from what Lincoln Riley said on Trojans Live. There was a lot there. Make sure you go check it out over at uscfootball.com. But I think we start with the injuries, and the biggest one being Eric Gentry. I think his presence, lack of presence, was felt in Minneapolis. But where is USC on the injury front, Connor?
I think in a better spot than they were after the game, for sure. The big fear was Anthony Lucas. He goes out with what's believed to be a knee injury and didn't return. He was back at practice. It looks like he's going to be good to go, which is encouraging. We saw Lake McCree come back at practice too. I don't know if he'll be able to play fully against Penn State, but the fact that he's back out there after taking that big hit against Michigan is good. But yes, the Eric Gentry stuff, he's not suited up, and it really sounds like he won't play again this year. Riley said we haven't made a final decision, but if I had to bet right now, I'd say it's unlikely that we'd see him again in the regular season, so he could preserve playing next season. Chris Trevino, our coworker, reported that he's had 2 concussions. So when you're coming back from something like that, you just fear for a guy like him, where one more concussion, forget about ever playing again this season, maybe ever playing again in his career. So really tough break. He, in my opinion, was USC's best defensive player before getting hurt, so he's probably not going to be out there. But there was some good news with some other players as well. And then one other piece of not so good news, one of USC's cornerbacks who went out against Minnesota, he wasn't spotted at practice yesterday, and we'll wait to get clarification from Lincoln Riley on that. The good news there is there's a lot of depth at the corner spot for USC, so shouldn't be too big of an issue. It's Big Ten football. This is college football. You got to deal with injuries, and one of the concerns, Ryan, for me at least, heading into the season, especially on that defensive side, was the depth, and that's going to be tested this week against Penn State, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think USC's depth there was a concern there when everything got going. Looked pretty good, but just losing a few pieces, and even the Bear Alexander
that kills him. And I hate to keep talking about that, but like,
he wasn't starting, but still,
it's one thing if it's an injury, but him just quitting, like, that sucks, because they really could have used him against Minnesota, and now against Penn State, he wasn't playing as much as he would have liked. That's well documented. That's why he's not playing anymore, and he, according to some people who I talked to, wasn't being a very good teammate at practice. So like, it was best for both sides that he split, but like, you just wish, if you're a fan, that he had his head on straight and he could help you, because now at 3-2 and going up against number 4 Penn State, you could really use a guy like that.
Yeah. We had a comment from Blackie Chan. Shout out to, we got to see him in person at in Minneapolis at our meetup on Friday. That was cool to see him. He says Gentry had 30 total tackles, and EMA has 36, and that's after the Minnesota game.
Yeah, so he's played one fewer game than EMA, and he was USC's leading tackler heading into that game, and then Easton Mascarenas Arnold.
He had 14, and Mascarenas Arnold had 14.
Yeah, so that was a big help. But Gentry, I think, was USC's best defensive player against the run, and we saw what he did against Michigan. And I don't want to throw Anthony Beavers under the bus, but it's just different when you have a guy like Eric Gentry in there, and then Anthony Beavers, who did a fine job. But Gentry is that NFL prospect, next level player, and Beavers is a solid depth piece, and you kind of saw the difference there against Minnesota.
Next up, I want to talk about what Lincoln Riley had kind of doubled down on. 2 plays away from being 5-0.
I don't know why he says stuff like that.
I'm not sure either. It's just one of those things where you're like, all right. I think I forget where I saw it on Twitter, but they were talking. There was a number of wins or losses that you were like 1 play away. They're close games. He said yesterday that you have to be in position to win because last year they lost a lot of games you weren't in position to win. But before that, you lost games you were in position to win, but you still lost them. And I don't know if 1 play away matters. It's just being like, we were close. But he sort of, I don't know, made defiant, but he kind of doubled down on it. I don't know, what were your thoughts on what Riley had to say about being 2 plays away from 5-0?
He tripled down on it. One of our colleagues asked him, you say you're 2 plays away from being 5-0, and he cut him off and said, we are. So I just don't know who that helps. Like, people aren't really happy with him after losing to Minnesota, and then no one wants to hear that, and we sort of heard it last year too. I remember after Alex Grinch got fired, he said we're 2 or 3 plays away from being undefeated in this conference. I've asked around to try to get an understanding for why he says this, and Shotgun had the most logical explanation, in my opinion. That's just to get the Fairweather fans who don't really pay attention on his side. Like, oh, they have been close. I guess we'll go with it. I don't really know why he says that. Like, does that help your team? I feel like if I was on the team, instead of hearing how close we were, I'd want to be challenged more. And hopefully behind closed doors he's doing that. And we, Ryan, on the show, we can get kind of sucked into talking about what he says in the press conferences and not talking about what he says or what they do on the field. And of course, what they do on the field is that much more important. But yeah, I don't know why he said that. And then on Trojans Live, he also said that they dominated the explosive plays against Minnesota, and Minnesota had 4 plays of 20 yards or more, and USC had 2. So I don't know why he says that either.
Yeah, that was one of the other things I was going to bring up. USC, I mentioned this before, USC's longest play from scrimmage was a 21-yard run by Quentin Joyner that they fumbled. There wasn't any other – there was another 20-yard – I think maybe it was a run or it was – I don't know. But there was – I think only 2 plays of 20 yards or more. One of them ended up in a fumble. So, and USC, I think you put it out, USC's been pretty bad overall, plays over 40 yards. They're what was the numbers? There was 4 all year.
I think there's only been 3, which ranks 104th nationally, and last year they were 2nd in that. So as time sort of goes on here, and I mean, they're playing Penn State this weekend, a really good defense. What did we talk about in the offseason? Is Lincoln Riley ready for the Big Ten, or is the Big Ten ready for Lincoln Riley? And initially it sort of looked like the Big Ten wasn't ready for him, but now that's sort of swung in the other direction, and we'll see what happens against Penn State. I don't want to say anything that's definitive when they haven't even played the game yet, but do you think they're going to have a lot of 40-yard plus plays against Penn State? I don't. That defense is really good.
It is a very good defense, but yeah, that was a curious thing too. And I think in general, they've given up some big plays, but it's been a lot of times on defense, they kind of bend but don't break thing. But I think Minnesota was the first one that was really kind of gashing them play in and play out, and where we weren't seeing that. Even against Michigan, it was 3 big plays were basically it. There was a lot more 3 and outs. So I think the big play thing, I mean, I wouldn't have said USC dominated over Minnesota for that.
I wouldn't hang my hat on that.
Maybe there's some metric I'm not aware of, but
I think he calls explosive plays 10 yards or more, and I think USC had 10 of those, and Minnesota had 9. So maybe he's right that they had more, but he didn't say that. He said they dominated them, and we're getting bogged down in stuff that he talked about. Just overall, what did we think going into the season? The depth on the defense, I was concerned about that, and then you see when some guys get hurt and some guys aren't available, what Minnesota did in that fourth quarter, and then the offensive line, and that hasn't been as good pass blocking as you would have hoped. And Riley asked him about the offensive tackle play yesterday, and he said, we just need more experience. These young guys are going to come together. Alani Noah had a great game against Minnesota, but you wonder about Elijah Page. And is USC, the program that it is, should they be in a position where they need to get guys reps who maybe aren't quite ready to get them up to speed? You'd hope that you would just have guys ready to go because you recruited better, or you recruited better from the transfer portal. So I don't know. I don't I'm kind of down on everything right now. I don't want to sound too negative, but it's a tough matchup against Penn State. You win this week, and people I think are all right back in, and it's a massive win against a top 5 program. Is USC in a position to do so, though? I think they have a great chance to be close, but at the end of the game, are they going to make enough plays to win? We'll see.
Yeah, just if you're using, no, it's not official stat, but Stats Broadcast, they do a nice job when we get all the stats. They'll call a big play, a running play of 10 yards or more, and a passing play of 15 yards or more. Minnesota had 4 of each of those. USC had 6 of each of those. But yeah, nothing. I mean, USC's longest didn't have a passing play longer than 18 yards, which is pretty weird. You know, they had the one running play of 21 and another one of 20.
To me, an explosive play is 20 or more, and we can get bogged down in the differences. But like that, to me, is an explosive, and the definition is kind of different depending on who you talk to. And just 20 or more, like that seems like a good definition to me, run or pass. And USC had fewer, so. Again, it doesn't really matter about explosive plays. It matters about winning, and USC didn't win.
We're talking about tackling a little bit, like Easton Mascarenas Arnold having 14 tackles. Mason Cobb, I think, had 11 in that one. But there was a bunch of missed tackles, too. I know Shotgun initially reported 15, but PFF changed it down to 13. But Jalen Smith, who's been a sure tackler, he had 5 of them. What were your thoughts on the tackling? Because it did seem like, you know, part of the reason they weren't getting as many 3-and-outs and getting stops and they were getting gashed a little bit is they were missing tackles. So it would be, instead of 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 8, there was a lot of 2nd and 2 kind of stuff.
I think it was a product of not having everyone healthy in the fourth quarter. Sam Green and Jade Abasiri are playing meaningful snaps, and they're just not as experienced. So maybe them being a little bit out of position could lead to a more experienced player not being in the right spot and missing a tackle. I just go back to the LSU game, Ryan, where they had all this time to prepare. They had everyone healthy, and it looked fantastic defensively outside of one coverage bust and one big run that LSU had. USC was really buttoned up in that game. And then once you're in these wars of attrition and some guys get hurt and a guy decides to redshirt and you don't have as much time to game plan, Minnesota could chip away a little bit more with these runs. And in the fourth quarter, USC looked tired because they don't have as much depth as they did to begin the season. And now, like, here, this is the challenge. You got to come out and play better this week, regardless of who's available. Like, you don't have the luxury of that LSU game where everyone is going to play, and you have all that time to game plan. It's a big week for the USC defense, in my opinion, because they started to slip against Minnesota, and everyone could see it. Are they going to slip again against Penn State, or are they going to get back to what they were doing against LSU? Because if they do that, then the offense that in past times has had a pretty big margin for error, it has a little bit of a smaller one now. Like, you can afford to make some mistakes on offense if your defense is buttoned up. So I am very fascinated to see what the defense looks like against a good Penn State offense with this limited time to prepare, with some bodies down. D'Anton Lynn's got to make his money this week.
Yeah, for sure. It was like a little bit of shine came off the armor with Minnesota not having the greatest offense in the world and moving the ball pretty well against USC at times. So
yeah, that's a team that really struggled to run all year, and they were gashing USC.
And they got a really good running back, and but you know, he looked way better against USC. That's kind of what we would see before, where that guy's good, but he looked really good against USC. Like, he looked really good against you. What was it, Travis? Forget his name.
Darius Taylor.
Darius Taylor. Okay.
Yeah, and then Marcus Major was good too. How do you feel about this game, Ryan? Because like if they lose it, it's 3-3, and I don't think anyone, of course, is happy with that. You win, people are right back in my opinion. It's a top 5 win. It's the college football playoff is probably still not realistic, but like, you're still in the mix. Whereas if you go to 3-3, you can kiss that goodbye for sure.
Yeah.
So a lot is weighing on this game, and in my opinion, people are down on Riley. D'Anton Lynn maybe took a small step back as a coach, or just as a play caller a little bit against Minnesota. He looked like this whiz kid, and you know, there are ups and downs in football, but you can get a lot of people to buy back in with a win like this. It's a home game, so that of course helps USC. I don't want to say it's a must win. It is for sure in the college football playoff picture, but that's probably not where we're looking at anymore. Just for the state of the program and for the perception of Riley, like, this is massive.
It is massive. If you just look at our chat right now, and first of all, we get people that are like comparing Lincoln Riley to Clay Helton. It's like, don't do it. Like, you're doing that to try to make a point that you're upset with Lincoln Riley. You have a complete right to be upset with Lincoln Riley. He is 5-7 over his last 12 games. But you can make your point. I'm not going to listen to you once you start comparing, saying that Clay Helton is a better coach. Look at this record. Look at that. Look. And someone was texting me or messaging me about what, the guts of the program and what Lincoln Riley took over. Clay Helton took over a much better program than what Lincoln Riley took over. The guts of the program were way worse because it was all those years of Clay Helton in it. So if Clay Helton kept going, I mean, his father, Kim Helton, had one of the worst coaching records ever. He was very good at keeping his job. He wasn't good at being a good football coach. And I thought about that before. So don't do the comparisons there. Legit complaints about Lincoln Riley, that's fine. But if you're trying to make your point stronger by saying Clay Helton was better, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what to tell you there. But it's very important for this game because all these games are still winnable. I said Minnesota was super important because those are the ones you can't lose if you want to be taken serious on the national. USC was on the national stage in the top, number 11 in the country. Arguments that they could have been in the top 10, would have been in the top 10 if they just beat Minnesota, even by a point. And now you're not. In a weekend of chaos, you were part of that chaos. You can be part of a huge weekend of college football. There's major, major matchups. And you want to be a big storyline? USC 24, Penn State 21, that's a big storyline. Penn State 38, USC 20 is not. It's just like, oh, yep, number 4 team came, beat the crap out of an unranked team, and just sort of move on. And USC is 3-3, where Minnesota's 3-3 now, but they built a little momentum by getting a signature win.
One win can change everything.
They rushed the field.
Yeah,
USC's not going to rush the field for beating Penn State, but
you
still now are like, oh, people will put you in their college football playoff tracker if you're 4-2 with a win over Penn State. Because there's one long road trip left at Maryland. You haven't won a Big Ten road game yet, so nothing's a gimme. And you got, Seattle, Washington looks better. You got that trip up there. Nebraska looks pretty good. Rutgers has been pretty good. UCLA is awful, but there's hope there if you win. If you don't win, there's not a lot of hope. And it's kind of going to be like going into the Holiday Bowl last year where there just wasn't much hope. They turned it around by beating Louisville and Miller Moss throwing 6 touchdowns, but I think you're going to lose a lot of the fan base. And it's a bad time to do it because you're going into this revenue share thing. You need people behind you. And right now, a lot of people are upset with Riley. You lose this one, you lose it badly. And this one you could get blown out in. If you play like you did against Minnesota, you get blown out. It could be bad.
And that's why that Minnesota loss is so damning, because if you beat Minnesota and then lose to Penn State, it's like, oh, okay, Penn State's probably just better and they're a little further along with James Franklin and that program's good. Like, losing to Minnesota, that cost you. So
yeah.
Now you go in, and the beauty is if you beat Penn State, I think just about everyone has Penn State projected to be that third team from the Big Ten to make the college football playoff. Maybe some people are higher on Penn State than like in Oregon, and Oregon, of course, will play Ohio State this weekend. But to me, when I look at the projections, I see a lot of Ohio State, I see a good amount of Oregon, and I see Penn State in there as well. They're pretty unanimously in that college football playoff projection. If USC can beat a team like that, yes, you still have the 2 losses. Nothing's perfect, but that will give so much like belief back to the fan base, probably to the team. Miller Moss spoke yesterday, Ryan. He was pissed. He was frustrated. He was the most upset. Upset's probably the wrong word, but he was really, I think, annoyed, and he showed it. Like, he's not happy with the way things are. That sort of represents the feelings of everyone around USC football right now. If you beat Penn State, a lot of that changes, and they kind of need it in that regard, because it can get ugly quick if you lose this game.
Yeah.
3-3, and then you sort of wonder what the rest of the season looks like.
Yeah. You have a fan in the chat. All praises to Yah. Well, he was one of the chats making the comparisons that Helton was better. So I basically told him your take is stupid. He likes the other guy. Ryan's an idiot or something. He said that. But he also says, ain't no way USC winning, sat bro. I'm sorry. I love USC, but no way. And I think people pointed out in the chat, like, you've seen what's happened in college football, right? The Big Ten teams that have traveled 2 time zones or more are 1-8. I mean, those are facts. Like, Penn State's leaving early. They have to drive to Harrisburg, like 2 hours, and then fly to Los Angeles. They're leaving tomorrow. It's not easy to do those kind of things. I think Penn State's a better team right now for sure. they're favored in the game, but not by like a ton. I mean, USC was favored by more over Minnesota and lost that game. It's anything can happen. And they pointed out like Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, like stuff like if you think there's no way that USC can win Saturday, then I don't think you've ever watched college football. There is a way. You're upset. I get it. You think USC sucks, so they're going to have to suck to show that you're right. But USC can certainly win. I think Penn State wins more than USC would if you ran the simulation or whatever and got to do it 100 times. But to think there's no way USC can win, I don't. Why are you even here? Like, I'm not sure what you're doing.
Well, and watching Penn State too, they didn't blow me away against UCLA. Their defense is solid, but then you look at Bowling Green, and Bowling Green had some success on them. So there's absolutely a chance for USC to win this game, in my opinion. And I just worried about the offensive tackles. Like, if Miller Moss gets good protection, then I'd say USC has a really good chance to win this game. I haven't been too impressed with what Penn State's done on offense so far this season. It's a lot of running the ball. When Drew Aller misses, he misses badly. He looks like that prototypical pocket passer, that NFL draft guy, but then drops back to throw, and some of them are just not that pretty. He does a good job of hanging onto the ball, though. He doesn't really make a lot of mistakes, which, of course, has plagued USC this season. So USC, on paper, like, a lot more could go wrong for them, but if they play to the USC standard that we saw defensively against LSU, offensively that we saw in the second half of that Wisconsin game, it's not going to be easy, but people saying that they have no shot, to your point, they just don't watch college football. I mean, the road travel is legit, and that record speaks for itself. And Penn State, offensively, they run the ball really well, but they don't have that fantastic passing attack. If USC can block better, it's a big if, because they haven't blocked very well so far this season, then they'll certainly be in the game. That's the biggest matchup to me. I've been saying it all week.
Yeah. You know what we try to do here is we want to be therapeutic. We want to, like, take care of people, because there's some stuff, you know, it's not easy. And, you know, as mad as he was at me, he put in the chat, man, sorry, Ryan, after Minnesota game, I lost all hope. I get it. Like, it's understandable. And then I think sometimes you'll make these, you know, comparisons that they're going to never score a point the rest of the, like, yes, you're upset, but that's what's frustrating and fun and cool about college football is, why does one team look great one week and they look like crap another? Because the game's being played by a bunch of like 17 to 22-year-old kids, or maybe like Cam Rising like 28 or whatever, but still there's just not a lot of it. It happens, and we get a lot of the same stuff, and sometimes we can get frustrated too. I had I don't know if he's going to watch, but David Johnson was on Twitter saying that I was attacking, I think from our last show, or maybe it was the Tunnel Vision show, about the Miller Moss stuff and the quarterback change, and I don't know what to say. Like, I'm not trying to be demeaning to fans. He was kind of getting on me. He's like, hey, you're making fans look bad. I'm certainly not trying to do that. It's more of, we get asked like a million times, and I'm like, I don't know what else to say. Like, I've told you, like, Lincoln Riley really knows quarterbacks. He thinks Miller Moss is the best option. For what we've seen, it's not the Miller Moss problem. So sometimes you get like that. So I'm sorry if it was being, I don't know, just dismissive or whatever, but I won't listen to the, like, Lincoln Riley's worse than Clay Helton argument. I just won't do it. Like, sorry. Like, seeing what's inside the program with when Helton was there and Riley, he's got his flaws, but it's a whole different story.
He does have his flaws, and I do think, like, in a week like this where Riley has preached a lot about, we gained all this weight and this team is really together, like, this is the week where we got to see that. And I felt like in the offseason and those first few games there, LSU, Utah State, you sort of saw, like, okay, Riley was really, really adamant that his team, they love each other, and that's going to help them to achieve their goals. And they have gained all this weight. They're going to be better defensively in the trenches, and we saw that. And then as time's gone on, you lose a couple of games. That gets questioned, especially the team bond. It's a big week. If all that he said in the offseason was true, which it looked like it was early in the year, like, this is a week you need all hands on deck. You need that chemistry to shine through. You need people to build Zachariah Branch up, and some of these younger guys, they're going to get baptized by fire a little bit. You need older guys to show them the way. Like, this isn't just a show up and we'll beat Penn State. A ton needs to go into this, and to me, it's like I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but I really feel like in Riley's tenure, this is like a program-defining kind of moment here for him, and it's either going to go one or two ways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there too. Real quick, I'm glad we got a lot of Penn State talk. We got to do that. But one of the other interesting things Riley said was about the call.
Yeah.
That, you know, any kind of thoughts from that? I like, you know, it's just sort of like, yeah, it was they shouldn't have I think the general thing
the
is
stupid ref should have called it a touchdown on the field.
Should have been called a touchdown, but once it wasn't, it shouldn't have been overturned.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you got the right answer, but Riley's point being like there was not indisputable video evidence. The first time you see the ball, it's on the ground, and I guess he didn't really get a explanation as to why they didn't follow. We think it's a touchdown, so we're going to call it a touchdown, as opposed to I can see it's a touchdown on the video. Like you couldn't see it was a touchdown on the video.
We've all been football fans for forever, and when your team gets screwed by the officials, it's the most frustrating thing, and I totally understand. I just always go back to you really shouldn't put it in the official's hand. Like you gotta, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. But like, I mean, Minnesota had the ball at the 1 inch line. Yes, you have to score, but like I don't know. It looked like he did get in off that initial TV look, at which I rewatched the game yesterday. But yes, to your point, like they did get it wrong, and that game probably should have either gone to overtime or maybe USC would have had a chance to win. Who knows what would have happened at their own 1 inch line? They would have had to move the ball more effectively than they were in the fourth quarter. But yeah, that's a situation where don't put it in the hands of the refs. Like if Mason Murphy doesn't get beaten in that fourth quarter and Moss throws the interception because he's hit immediately, USC probably scores, and then it's not up to the refs to make that decision. USC was a freaking 8.5-point favorite in this game, and yes, the calls weren't good down the stretch. Riley also mentioned the intentional grounding. You mentioned the pass interference on Jalen Smith, but they just kind of collectively let go of the rope at the end of that game, and the officials didn't help. But if you are up on your P's and Q's and playing well and just score on that drive in the fourth quarter to go up 2 scores, we're not even in this position. So, again, people don't want to hear that, and I understand that because you want the refs to call it fair. That's what everyone wants, and they didn't do a very good job of that in the second half. But really, if USC's as good as everyone thought they were, they wouldn't have even been in that position.
So I usually let things go in the chat. And shout out to Blackie Chan for being a good moderator. But when I see someone say Lincoln Riley or Paul Hackett, you just got banned from the channel. Sorry, that's not it's not even a funny joke. I just can't I don't ever want to see that again. Now everyone's going to get So sorry, you're gone. Thanks for watching, but you can't.
Thanks for watching, but you're gone.
You can't comment anymore.
Oh, it only took a few weeks here to start banning people from the channel. That's not cool.
I do it sometimes. Sometimes when it's you just see it but something like that is just absolutely ridiculous. So I'm like, nope, that's gone. Little news: Sam Darnold's going to be the the tunnel captain. So the Vikings are on a bye because did they go to London? I think they went to London, right?
Yes, they beat the Jets in London.
Yeah, they beat the Jets in London.
Now, Paul Hackett's son, I mean, he's still the offensive coordinator of the Jets, but not the interim. They gave it to the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, they gave it to the defensive coordinator, Brick, right? Albrick. I watched a little bit of Aaron Rodgers I think it was on Pat McAfee or whatever, but he's saying he had nothing to do with the Robert Saleh firing and stuff. But anyway, that's NFL stuff. But Sam Darnold's going to run the team out of the tunnel, as you remember, and there's people talking about in the chat. Last time USC played Penn State was in the Rose Bowl. People are saying Clay Helton won that game. People were upset when USC was looking for a coach and James Franklin's name would come up because they were like, you can't pick him because Clay Helton beat him. And then other people are arguing it was Sam Darnold that beat him, not Clay Helton. But anyway, Sam Darnold was involved in the last Penn State game, and he will be running out of the tunnel.
Great career renaissance for him. How happy are you for him? I mean,
he's like a fantasy option, he's a QB option in fantasy now.
It just goes to show you need to be in the right situation, and that's with coaching, that's with offensive line, that's with skill position. Like, I'm glad he, through all those bad experiences he had with the Jets and a little bit with some of those other teams, that he still was able to learn and stay grounded, and now he gets a chance with a really good coach with the Vikings, and that offense is explosive, and I mean, he's obviously a huge part of it, so I'm really happy for him, and that just goes to show how important the situation is in football, and sometimes we forget about that. It's just, this guy stinks, or this guy is good.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Would Patrick Mahomes succeed everywhere? I'm sure there are some situations where he'd be out on the street right now because they're so bad.
And I think part of the reason Robert Saleh got fired is because Sam Darnold was doing so well.
Yeah.
Like, well, why couldn't you do something with him? Well, was he his coach? Was
maybe
he there?
at the tail end? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember, but that didn't help. Okay. we have a question in the chat, USC Football for Life, about the new NIL ruling. So we can talk about that a little bit. With no NIL, does it mean recruits can officially commit to a school when they've made up their minds by simply signing an NIL contract? No, so it's not an NIL contract, though that's probably going to be a thing soon. It's a financial aid agreement. And so we would see transfers happen like after signing day. They would sign a financial aid agreement, and they're traditionally non-binding. I think these ones are just going to be, signing day is going to be the same, but you're going to sign this financial aid agreement. It'll probably be more binding, though, because you can't sign a bunch of ones with different places. It used to only go into effect once you enrolled, but I don't think they'll let you sign like multiple financial aid agreements. It's not all sort of finalized yet, but from what I've understood and the people that I've talked to. So I think that's what's going to be the case. But really, there's going to be more of an actual contract coming down the line when you're getting a revenue share from the school. So if you decide, I'm sure there'll be stuff in the contract like you gotta, if you don't stay for the whole year, you get this, or what you don't get this, or whatever it is, or you pay this money back, signing bonus. There'll be stuff like that, an actual contract. But no more fax machines. You don't need it anymore. But people will sign, my understanding, a financial aid agreement, but it was still, the signing days will still be a thing.
Max Olson of ESPN tweeted, per the NCAA, transfers will be able to sign written offers with new schools. Other schools will be prohibited from recruiting communications with them after they sign. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it's like NLI is going away, but like the financial aid agreements are still like what exactly has changed? That's sort of what I'm struggling
I think you could
understand.
so if a player like was transferred in, they sign like a financial aid agreement, it doesn't matter. I think the school has to honor it, if my understanding is correctly. The school would have to honor it, but the player could just walk away. It doesn't matter until they enrolled. And once they were enrolled, then it was so where the national letter of intent was binding. So now it's just, I think it's just like kind of semantics or whatever.
Exactly. That's sort of, I see it, everyone making a big deal out of it. To me, it just seems like semantics.
You're still signing something. I mean, right now you can just transfer whenever you want anyway. It was really about, but the old financial aid agreements was like, it didn't matter for the player until they enrolled, and now you're like locked in. But even if you're locked in now, you can just leave.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
But I think once we get the revenue share and you're signing a contract, if you showed up for spring ball and you signed a contract and you left after spring ball, like who's the defensive lineman? Why am I blanking on his name?
Gavin Meyer?
No, the one that left for from Texas A.
Isaiah Rakes.
Isaiah Rakes, yeah. So there'll be something in the contract that says you can't just stay for spring ball and then go to another SEC school because you just wanted to transfer out, transfer back in without sitting out or whatever. So yes, I think there'll be stuff like that in these contracts, but we still don't know the details of all that stuff.
Yeah, I need to look more into this. This all broke this morning. I haven't really read up on it so far, but to me, I said it with Jack, like we cover this recruiting space and it's the dumbest thing in the world where you ask these recruits, so why'd you pick so-and-so school? Oh, the coaches, oh, my family, oh, the facilities. And then there's no talk of the financial piece, which is for a lot of these guys, the main driver behind them going to a school. I'm excited for the day where USC signs the top-rated quarterback in a class, 4 years, $12 million deal. It's all out in the open. Oklahoma offered this much, but this recruit wanted to go to this school because of Lincoln Riley for whatever reason. Like, then we can talk about actual substantive like conversations that involve money, where now it's like, oh, well, he maybe got more NIL money from this school, but we can't really report that because we're afraid of getting on someone's bad side and it looks bad to the kid. Let's put it all out in the open. It's freaking happening for God's sakes. Like let's call a spade and let's get ahead of this. That probably means the NCAA is no more, but I mean, we're getting closer and closer to that, and I'm really looking forward to the day we can discuss the contracts.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this revenue share is coming up in like months. Like, talk to people in the athletic director world, and they're meeting actually right now in Nashville. They need to figure out how to pay for all this stuff, what all the rules are. You can't just say, okay, well, now you got to pay everyone $22 million. Everyone needs this needs to happen. And so, yeah, Jen Cohen and a lot of other athletic directors are down, and I think it's today in Nashville, or they left today or something. But they're meeting, and I think Ross Dellinger or someone, I forget who it was, reported that there's like a private equity $9 billion thing. They'd want to make a 70-team like Super League and save everybody and stuff. There's a lot of stuff to kind of discuss what's going on there, but it's changing very quickly. So, yeah. One other thing, we know we're not much of a basketball podcast, at least I'm not really, but you did go to a scrimmage.
I did.
Yeah, for USC hoops. I mean, a whole new team, obviously. Does it look like a team that can make some noise in the Big Ten in year one? Eric Musselman as the head coach?
I like the fact that they have a lot of experience. I don't think they can win the Big Ten, but I don't think they're going to be an awful team. Some people predict them to be at the bottom of the league. I could see them being right in the middle. And what I like is they can just throw a lot of people who are 6'6" at you, and they're going to defend really well. Like, I don't know about the star power of the team, but I think they will be tough to play night in and night out. And I could see them potentially making the NCAA tournament if they're able to finish in the middle of that league. The most important thing, that team needs help from the Galen Center faithful. They got to make the USC home court be a real home court, because in the Big Ten that matters. It's different than the Pac-12 where some of those away trips really you don't get a ton of fans. Like pretty much all these buildings, it's going to be tough to play. And if USC, that's the age-old thing, like will more people show up for basketball? I know it probably won't happen, but it would really help this team if more people showed up for sure, because they're in this new league where there are going to be a lot of home court advantages for other teams, and if USC doesn't have one, that certainly is a disadvantage.
Yeah. Blackie Chan says, shout out to Juju Watkins.
Yeah.
Resigning with Nike. Yeah, Nike.
Yeah, a massive deal for her. Imagine being in college and signing one of the most lucrative deals,
shoe contracts
with a brand in the history of basketball. That's amazing. She is a phenom, and just shaking my head. Life for her must be incredible.
Not bad. Okay, why don't we do this? We'll take a quick break, and we will come back, and we got a lot of questions to get to.
Okay.
So from the chat, and we'll answer other ones. Back in a minute, everyone. All righty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. I want to get to some questions that you guys have sent in. Let's go to For Free, For Real. Hello, Trojan Football. We're not really Trojan Football, but we'll go with it. With many others, like Bear deciding to redshirt after 4 games, what happens to their NIL deal? Seems like a major issue if he gets to keep the money and cause such a big disruption with the team. Can you have someone from House of Victory talk to this point about any language used to deal with this type of situation? Contracts are boring conversation pieces, but this pisses me off. I know we didn't have much choice in taking Bear, as we desperately needed someone, but he sure didn't fit the character model that Lincoln Riley is trying to get. Give us our money back. Thanks, for real, for free.
Totally get the question. I don't know about you, Ryan. I've tried to get some answers on this and haven't been very successful. I think transparency here would be huge. Alexander's making a lot of money, so I'm sure you can't take back what he's already had, but what does the future of his deal look like? And I understand from the people who are paying him, Zen, like you don't want to disclose the exact sum of money that he's making, but like a simple yes or no would be helpful. Is he, despite the fact that he's not playing, is he going to still make money going forward? And if he is, have you learned a lesson to write language and contracts where this won't happen again? So I get the question. We're trying, but I haven't really had much luck getting information on that so far. Yeah,
I haven't got it either. It's what you want to know kind of right away. Well, how does this work? And these are things you kind of keep close to the vest. My guess, just reading between the lines, if it was like not as bad for the school, maybe we would have heard. It might be bad for the school. It might be Bears getting his money or whatever. I don't know. I mean, that's just speculation. Maybe they just don't want to say anything out of principle. But if there were some positive things like, well, he was going to get this, but since he left, he's not going to, or whatever. But we don't know at this point. But I think with the contracts, like we're talking about with the revenue share, it will be more sort of above board and people know what's expected, and there'll be more language like that. I don't know what USC's House of Victory language was with Bear, and when he came back to the table and, they stepped things up, Maybe they added some guarantees, like even if you leave, you're still going to get paid. We don't know. I'm not sure, but don't know at this point.
This is another reason why contracts being out there and the language in them being hopefully public. I know in the NFL and in other leagues, it's not all totally public, but like if this happens, then you don't get this money, or if this happens, then you do.
Yeah.
The one thing I got when I asked, so Bears contract not totally tied to playing in games, but tied to being on the team, practicing, and being a good teammate. So what the hell does that mean exactly? Because technically he is on the team, but is he being a good teammate? No. So I don't know what determines being a good teammate or not. To your point, Ryan, I kind of agree with you, and I don't want to be proven wrong instantly if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, actually, that's not the case at all. But I feel like if the news was good, then we probably would have heard something. So
yeah,
not
maybe.
Totally sure, but we're trying.
To be fair, when it came to contracts, it was always hard to kind of get information anyway.
Which is why we need it all out in the open.
Yeah. So whatever. But okay. But thanks for the question. Chris wrote in. He said, "Do we have anybody else that can play right tackle, or can we move the line around? I feel if we had an average or even a slightly below average right tackle, even with the other issues on the team, we would probably be undefeated. But Miller is going to get killed if Mason Murphy, who I rate as well below average, stays in there and doesn't have any help on virtually every single down, which I know is really impractical tactically." Thanks from Chris.
It would be Tobias Raymond. I guess it could be Jonah Monheim too. I think Mason Murphy has played okay sometimes,
but
his
worst game against Minnesota.
The problem with an offensive lineman is it's not like a receiver dropping a pass. If you make a mistake, it can lead directly to a turnover, which can directly change the game, whereas a drop pass might change the game too, but it's way less significant most of the time. So just consistency with them has been an issue. So I don't envision Jonah being moved out to tackle. So many people have asked about that. But then what does the center position look like? I actually kind of like Killian O'Connor, the walk-on backup center, but the staff is going to do what the staff feels is right. So the only other backup tackle who's played at all this year is Tobias Raymond. So maybe there's a swap there. We'll see at practice today. The first-team offensive line with a backup center usually takes scout team reps during the media viewing period. So if there is a new tackle, we can pass that along. I wouldn't anticipate any changes, especially, Ryan, with you were there, Riley, after the game. I thought the offensive line played well enough to win. On Tuesday, he said, we're taking steps forward. We just need to continue to get better, and these young guys, they'll improve rapidly as they get more experience. So it doesn't sound like any changes are coming to me.
I don't think so either. I mean, they played around with the right guard spot. It doesn't seem like.
And Alani Noah's good now. Like, he had a great game against Minnesota.
Yeah,
we'll see against Penn State, but they were playing around with a position, and that guy's good. So I don't know.
He played well. Carlos, class of 2017. Regarding Penn State away travel logistics, you mentioned that large planes could not land at the regional airport near State College. So does that mean for all the long haul-away games, Penn State also has to bus a few hours to get to a large airport like away teams have to? Seems like a big headache. Thank you for your insight. And Carlos, I'll give you my thoughts on this, and we can get Connor's too. I did some research. I actually went on a podcast.
You know way more about this than me, so take it.
Landon Tangwall, who played for Penn State, got hurt, and he's still in Penn State right now, but he does like a podcast and stuff. I went on his show earlier. We kind of talked about this a little bit, and he tweeted some stuff out today too about basically what Penn State's going to do for this game is drive 2 hours to Harrisburg, or hour and 45 minutes, and they're going to take I believe it's a 787, which is too big to take off and land at the State College Airport. They could extend the runway, but it would be like $50 million, and they're not doing that right now. Now, some teams have flown in there, and I was told that if you wanted to take a flight from the West Coast, the plane was too big, needed too much fuel. You couldn't do it directly. I believe UCLA did, but it might be a smaller plane. So if you wanted to take a bigger plane that you could like be more comfortable for the players, and from what I was told, the 787, that's too big to take out of to fly out of State College. UCLA just went there last weekend, and they flew in on Friday. And USC is going to, they've been flying on Fridays too, and there's been some question about that. But if USC goes to Penn State, it's going to depend on how big their plane is to where they fly into. It could be Harrisburg for a big plane, or you could take a smaller plane not going to be as comfortable for the long flight, and you could fly into State College. So that's my understanding of what's going on there.
Yeah. James Franklin was talking a little bit about it on his weekly press conference.
Oh, yeah.
He said that's something that they're working on with the Big Ten. But so to the question then, you can fly there directly, but you just would have to take like 2 smaller planes?
Or no, just not if you for what he was saying, the 787 is like a big plane for the big players. There's more room. You can put your seat back. The other planes are smaller, going to be
but
more
you can
cramped.
Still fit everyone?
You could still fit everyone, but it just wouldn't be as comfortable from what I've understood.
And I thought Penn State was leaving Thursday.
They are leaving Thursday.
But not flying directly. I thought they had to stop, but is that not true?
No, I think they're flying directly from Harrisburg to L.A.
But it's just so much travel, the 2-hour drive, the
day.
cross-country flight, that's why they're taking the extra
day.
Okay.
I mean, you do have a 2-hour drive in there too, so although that could be the USC to LAX, you could be 2 hours if the traffic was terrible. But yes. And so I'm going to address some of the travel flying Friday versus flying Thursday and some of the history of USC in the War Room on Friday. So check it out. Talk to some high-level sources at USC about this. So I'll share some thoughts over there. If you're not a subscriber over at uscfootball.com, you can sign up 30% off. It's a great deal. Just go check it out. You would want to get this stuff. The War Room every week is worth it. Chris's Ghost Notes are worth. There's so many good things that we put in there that you guys will really love. All right. Let's see. Oh, we got another question. And do you have anything else on that one or no? You're good.
I'm good.
Clemens. He wrote in, listening to your Minnesota postgame analysis podcast briefly this morning, I would be asking, quote, what can we do to mitigate the shortcomings of the offensive line? The season is too long in the tooth to believe that this offensive line will perform at a level necessary to win games, even at a baseline level. I know you enjoy communicating via analogies, so mine would articulate that not every battle in war is won with the same strategy, along with a tactical approach and its implementation. Lincoln Riley's lack of patience continues to hurt us because my impression is that he wants to win a game, any game, by the end of the first quarter. Whether in football, war, or life, it just doesn't work that way. Knowledge is knowing, and wisdom is understanding. Money doesn't buy wisdom. Only experience through time can. My hope, which should never be a strategy, is that he'll just understand his pieces on the chessboard and play appropriately. On Saturday, it was just run the ball. Who cares whether you win by 20 points or 1 point? The end game is to win the game. Clemens, BS 85, MBA 2005.
A lot there.
Yeah.
I mean, schematically, are there things you can do to help with an offensive line that maybe Riley could be doing more? Yes, but, I mean, he was asked after the Minnesota game, like, have you ever thought about using another tight end or using a running back? And, like, I know can be stubborn, but, like, I don't really feel comfortable saying he needs to be doing this. Like, him as a general manager is the problem. Like, the guys just haven't been as good. And, like, I don't know if there's any magical fix, like, tactically that will just make your offensive line play better.
Yeah.
Elijah Page just needs more experience, it sounds like, and he's getting that. And Mason Murphy, I kind of feel like he is what he is. So I don't know. This is the thing that Riley sort of acknowledged in the spring was a problem, that the depth of the offensive tackles wasn't great, and then they didn't do anything about it. And that was something that he said. That's not just me projecting. And now that's sort of played out. So I look at him, like, when I get these questions, like, what can we do? And tactically, like, what needs to change? I think your recruiting approach needs to change, and your recruiting approach specifically with the transfer portal and your talent evaluation from the transfer portal, that's where I would direct my ire, not, like, tactically. Like, everyone, we all knew the offensive line wasn't going to be great this year.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, Coach Harvey Hyde, when we talk to him, he goes into some of the things. He'd like to see more draws and screens and things like that. I mean, they've tried to run screens. It just doesn't come out very well. It usually goes poorly. But I think some of the traditional strategies aren't really as big of a part as modern college football offense as they used to be. But you might need to incorporate some things that are, is there things you can do to slow down the pass rush? I mean, running the ball is just one of them. They were effective running the ball and probably got away from it, more than they should.
Yeah, maybe the game plan this week is to run more and they'll stick to it, and that might be what the emailer is more referring to instead of like the pass protection where let's throw another tight end. Like, I guess maybe I must have missed some of that part, but if they do come out and they run it, like what if the first series they go 3 and out, but it's run? I feel like some people might actually be kind of happy with that because that would show, hey, Riley's trying here, he's adjusting.
Yeah.
So yes, if he continues to throw the ball and Moss, like if it gets ugly because USC can't pass protect against Penn State, then fine. We can on this show next week we can talk all about that, how he's made all these mistakes. But I have a tough time like kind of hammering him for something that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, should they have run more against Minnesota? Sure. Is the offensive line not as good as it should be? Yes. Running the ball a lot more, is that a recipe for beating Penn State? We'll see.
Shotgun had an interesting point on the Helium Boys podcast about, Minnesota wanted to slow the game down. They were running the ball a lot and everything, but USC didn't do itself any favors if it wanted more possessions because they were snapping the ball with like 5 seconds left on the play clock a lot of the time. So I didn't realize that, but that's something that, maybe you needed to go more up tempo and go faster. It seems like you can get people in a rhythm that way. That could have been something else that you've done that you would be comfortable doing as opposed to like go under center and run this, dive play or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's probably part of it as well. The bottom line is this, Ryan. USC was shut out over the last quarter and a half against Minnesota. That's the longest drought to end a game on offense for a Riley coach team at USC. And I almost said UCLA because the Twitter video popped up of Desmond Claude, the USC guard, doing a review of a UCLA uniform. So sorry about that. Got a little distracted. The offense just hasn't been good enough, and there's a million things we can talk about with why. The line, the receivers, Miller Moss being new, the play call. It's a whole – operationally, it hasn't been good enough, and, it's just there's so much more than just one little itty-bitty piece of this thing. They need to make a lot of adjustments all over the place.
Yeah, we've got one more email and then a few comments in the chat, and we'll get out of here. Stephen Poway, I promise I'm not asking a Googleable question this time. By the way, the NCAA does require players to have a mouthpiece on their person.
I was kind of short with Steve last time, so sorry, Steve.
That's okay. But apparently the refs don't enforce the rule if it's not actually in their mouths at the time of play. Silly practice, in my opinion. That was kind of my thought, too, where you need to be out in the bay behind me on a paddleboard. You have to have a life jacket with you, but you don't have to be wearing it. I have a strategic question I'd like to get your opinion on. It has now happened twice this season against Michigan and then Minnesota, where USC was in a position towards the very end of the game in which their opponent had possession of the ball and was driving slowly towards the end zone. But USC was in the lead at the time and was trying to defend their end zone at all costs. In both cases, my immediate thought was, why doesn't USC let the opponent score quickly so they can get the ball back? Yes, they give up the lead, but the flip side is it gives USC the ability to control their own destiny with the ball in their hands of a very good quarterback and offense with plenty of time to score as time is running out. In your expert opinions, if USC finds itself in a position again this season with this USC defense, should they opt for allowing a quick score against or try to defend their end zone at all costs while the opponent milks the clock? Stephen Poway. Real quick, Connor just pointed out, USC didn't score the last 11 minutes of the game. I think the defense was playing better than the offense. I don't have an issue with that. It's like you think about it, but I don't know. I don't think you want to do that. Give up the lead.
If your defense is terrible, I'm all for doing that. But this USC defense, for as much as they struggled against Minnesota, we've all seen the jump they've made. And let's not forget, it wasn't like Minnesota for sure scored that last touchdown. They were really close to getting a stop. So I think just based on what happened, maybe would the game have been different if they let them score? Yeah, but USC was really close to getting a stop, and I think the only way you would do that is if you just have no faith in your defense, and it is a unit that is really, really bogging you down. And in that game, it was the offense that was struggling probably a little bit more than USC's defense. So I do think it's a fair question, and it's a fun strategy to talk about, but the only way I would do that is if, it's offense where everything's just rolling, and defensively you got nothing, kind of like last year in some ways a little bit. But I think the situation's totally different, and USC did really get close to stopping them. So I don't have a huge second guess there, but I understand the question for sure.
It was Marshall said Tennessee tried that against the Hogs. It didn't quite work out.
Didn't catch that game, but that
I didn't see that part either. But yeah, and it's one of those things too where it sort of worked out as badly as it could, because you'd rather like Minnesota score on third down, but you actually get a stop, and now you're like, well, now it's fourth down. You got to try. You got to try to get the stop, and it took even more time off the clock. Michael says, did you guys notice that Miller Moss went under center?
Yeah, how'd that play work?
He listened to the fans like. Yeah, that looked terrible. That was one of the worst quarterback sneaks I've ever seen. So.
I didn't. Something went wrong on that.
That was terrible.
I don't know if we asked Riley directly what he would say like was supposed to happen, because I
think that's the first time they went under center all season.
It looked to me like maybe Moss wasn't on the same page, but like Joey Olsen ran a route. Though he was in as a fullback, the first offensive snap he's played all season, the tight end, and he was wide open. I don't know. Like, I mean, clearly Moss, he was supposed to run the ball, but, like, it looked to me like if he had just dropped back to pass, taken the snap, Olsen would have been wide open because it was so clearly going to be a run. I don't know what the heck happened on that play. They almost fumbled on it, too. That was not pretty.
Question from the Wolf Slayer. We had another one from Kurt, but it was basically the same offensive line stuff we just talked about. The Wolf Slayer, USC shocks the world and wins out the rest of the season? I mean,
hey, anything's possible.
It
but
is certainly possible.
I don't think they have the depth like that you need to do that. But hey, never say never, I guess.
I think it's one of those things where going into the season, you were like, it could be pretty good. But like if you start off 0-1 and lose to LSU, like no. But then you beat LSU, you're like, oh, okay. So now there's like opportunities. You win this weekend, there's more opportunity. I would entertain talking about that if you beat Penn State. But until you do, I don't think you just got to try to look good in a game, let alone you just play good for 60 minutes and not like crap for most of it.
Yeah. And how it what did they do before that Minnesota game? They didn't look very good in that first half against Wisconsin. Like there's certainly some causes for concern. That LSU game, as more time goes on, who's the real USC? Is it what we saw against LSU, or is it that fourth quarter against Minnesota? Is it that first half against Wisconsin? It's somewhere in the middle, of course, but which team is going to win out? I don't know. That LSU game, as more time goes on, unfortunate to say, it looks a little bit like an outlier.
We'll see if LSU can beat Ole Miss this weekend. That would probably be a positive. That's one of the big games on the slate. There's a lot in there. Question, is it fair to compare Riley's current tenure to Harbaugh's at Michigan?
I say absolutely, and I've done that in the past. Yes, I think that's a good comparison.
The only thing is, like, Harbaugh had a lot of NFL success, too. Like, if you're trying to – and Harbaugh started at a small school, being a head coach at San Diego, then build Stanford. Harbaugh was a program builder where Riley took over for, like, a program builder. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What do you mean by the comparisons? Like, should he be where Harbaugh is kind of thing, you mean? Or building up to a national championship or –
I just think I look at both those guys totally different, of course, but like established coaches going into a blue blood program and not having success at first, and then eventually it works out for them. And that sort of, to me, of course, so many differences with them, but that's like the trajectory that it looks like Riley's on right now, where Harbaugh struggled at first at Michigan. I mean, he did have he went 10-3 and 10-3, so he had a little bit more success looking at last season, but it's not like Riley had a bad first year, so he got hot early, but then in the middle there, he kind of lost his way a little bit, and he figured it out. I mean, they were 9-4 one year, and then in the COVID season, they only won the 2 games. So if USC goes 8-4 this season, like the point is they're a way back. And yes, because Harbaugh has shown that there is, and he made some adjustments. I mean, Don Brown was his defensive coordinator, and he wasn't very good, and then he made a change, and now looking at Lincoln Riley, he's done something similarly, and people question the offensive line. Like, I just think I've said it all along, you got to kind of sink or swim with Lincoln Riley. He's not going anywhere, and he is a really well-established coach based on what he's done before. If you can't win with him, and you got to like hope he figures it out. If he doesn't figure it out, then like he's not going anywhere. So that's kind of, it's him or nothing.
Yeah, Michael says Michigan fans were calling for his job.
Exactly.
Yeah, he got a pay cut. I mean, he was basically, they wanted to fire him and they couldn't afford it, and it ends up winning a national championship. So, last one from John: is there a rule change in the NCAA? I'm sorry, if there is a rule change, refs need to be overseen in real time to prevent the bad call factor of not reversible unless clear. He's mad about the call and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like that's one of those ones where you need some kind of explanation. Like if you needed indisputable evidence, if that's what it says and you don't have it, how can you overturn it? Like that just seems like that's not a bang bang call in the field. That's like someone made a decision, and it just seems like, yeah, if you do that again, don't do it. Like when the Pac-12, whatever, the VP was like in the replay booth, like trying to influence referees' decisions and stuff. Like, no, they made a rule. Like, you can't do that. I think it's one of those things where you'd have to like reemphasize, like, look, if the call is bad on the field and the video doesn't show it clearly to reverse, you can't reverse it, even if you think that's the case. Like, maybe there's like a memo that goes out, but I don't know if there's going to be a rule change or anything.
I mean, replay is the officials being overseen in real time, and that fails you. So I don't really know what you can't replay the replay. It's like, who polices the police? I guess the courts. Like, there's no next level of that with this. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it's unfortunate. Like, you switch conferences, and all we heard was how much the Pac-12, the refs are terrible. We're going to this new conference, and the officials are going to be way better. And I mean, if anything, they've been the same, if not worse so far.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I think, I talked about this with David Woods on the podcast of Champions, which we're going to record in a few minutes anyway. Pac-12 officiating, there was a high level of incompetence. People thought that there was like a bias, but I think it was really just widespread incompetence. Unfortunately for the Big Ten, it seems like there's a bias there. Like maybe there's a reason for bad calls. It seems more like both sides. It's not like, and Shotgun talked about this a little bit too. There just seems a lot of bad calls, but helping home teams more and things where it's like, oh, okay. Is that really, there seems like there could be a bias in some of these things where Pac-12, people thought they were biased, but it just seems like widespread incompetence. So I don't know. We'll see.
I hope there's no bias. That would stink.
Yeah. Even the timeout given back to PJ Fleck, you're just like, that just seemed very weird. You're like, what? Like, would he have got that if he was in the Coliseum? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But that was a weird one. Lincoln Riley said it was a big call. It wasn't a big call, but it was just a strange one where we took a timeout. We went to break, and then they're like, nope, you didn't use the timeout. He said that he didn't mean to call it. Like, okay. Like, historically, that's not been granted, but for whatever reason, it's granted. And is it because it's the home team? I don't know, but it seems like that might have something to do with it.
I have no good answer for it. I don't know. People just jump to, they're biased against USC. I mean, I don't know.
No, I don't think.
I think it's just incompetence.
Yeah, I think there's incompetence too, but it just seems like there's a little sense of bias in there where Pac-12 is just like, yeah, whatever we all stink. We'll call everything bad. It just doesn't matter. And a lot of the former Pac-12, or some of them, are in the Big Ten.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe there you go.
There could be some of that too. Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up. Connor Morrissette. I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys all enjoyed the show. Make sure to check out Tunnel Vision Thursday night and after the game on Sunday, and hope you get to see you out there at the Coliseum. Thanks for tuning in with us, and we will talk to you next time.